Hi, Poli here. Welcome back to another episode of BizJet TV, and today we're going to be talking about pilot qualifications. So you're in the process now of buying your private jet, and you need some pilots to fly you. So you need to figure out what qualifications do these pilots need to have, and what are the differences between the various qualifications. So the first thing a professional pilot needs to have is either a commercial pilot's license or an airline transport pilot's license, or ATPL as it's called. Now, the captain usually has the ATPL, must have an ATPL, while the co-pilot can have an ATPL or a CPL, which is a commercial pilot's license. Or you can hire two captains, depending on the nature of your operation and depending on your budget and and how you want to conduct things. Some people do like to operate their private jets with two captains. Some people just hire captains. Other people are quite happy to have a first officer, co-pilot as it's called, as well as a captain up front flying them around. So the important thing is the ATPL, to get an ATPL requires a minimum of 1,500 hours flight time, while a CPL requires a minimum of around about 250 hours. Now there's different types of pilot licenses. There's pilot's licenses, FAA licenses, and there's EASA licenses. They're the two most common types of licenses. And obviously this will depend on where your aircraft is going to be registered. If your aircraft is registered in the United States, therefore it's flying with an NREG as it's called, then the pilots will require an FAA license. If they're flying a European registered airplane, then they will require an EASA license. Then there's other jurisdictions like, for example, the Isle of Man, San Marino, Aruba, Bermuda, and these offshore jurisdictions usually accept both FAA and EASA licenses. So that's how the licensing works. Then the next thing the pilot's going to need is going to be a type rating to fly that specific type of aeroplane. Now, my recommendation always is to owners is not to focus and think, oh, I'm buying a Gulfstream G550 and must hire a pilot with a type rating in a Gulfstream G550. No, you don't. You can go out there and hire somebody and put them through the training course. Now, these training courses, the initial type rating courses, can cost anywhere between $10,000 to about $80,000, depending on the type of aircraft they're being rated on. Now, interestingly enough, if you're buying yourself a Boeing business jet on Airbus corporate jet, they're obviously derivatives of the Boeing 737 and the Airbus A320. Now, because there are a lot of Airbus 320 and Boeing 737 simulators around the world, because there are a lot of these airplanes flying for the airlines, the type rating course is a lot cheaper. It's about $10,000 to $15,000. While if you're buying a Gulfstream G550 and your pilot needs to be rated because they haven't got the initial type rating, then it's going to cost you about $50,000 to $60,000. And the reason being, they don't build as many Gulfstream G550s. Consequently, there aren't many simulators, and so the price is what it is. And so that's kind of the difference in the cost. Now, a pilot that flies, for example, that's qualified on a Global Express or a Boeing 737 can go and fly a Gulfstream G550. But, if you're going to be flying a different type to what you've flown before, you have to go through the type rating course. And that usually lasts anywhere between 2 to 6 weeks, depending on the airplane. But don't think that a pilot that flies a Gulfstream G550 can't learn to fly a Falcon 7X. Of course they can. They just need to go through the training. I mean, these bigger airplanes are very similar. There are differences, of course, which is why you have to do a type rating course. But, someone that's learnt to fly a large aeroplane won't have difficulty in learning to fly another large aeroplane as long as they go through the course. What I do not recommend to do, and if you are, let's say, for example, a King Air owner, and then suddenly you decide that you need to go and buy a Global Express, please don't go and take the King Air pilot that's never flown a jet in his life, never flown a big jet in his life, and stick them straight onto a Gulfstream G550 as a captain. Some people have done that. I don't recommend doing that. If you're going to the larger jet, make sure that the pilots that you're hiring have flown a larger jet before, and then put them through the training course. It's always best to focus on the people and find some good people, and then if those good people haven't got the type rating, put them through the course. I mean, if you're spending $20-30 million on a private jet, I mean, what's $50,000 for a training course for the pilot? So that's the initial type rating. Then your pilots will have to go through training every year. It's usually twice a year, and that's called recurrent training. And that recurrent training happens in the simulator twice a year. So they travel over, they do some ground school, they do some simulator, and all different emergencies are simulated during that time. There are also other courses that pilots can do, which can help with, improving flight safety, like upset recovery training, and also specific scenario trainings, or LOFT exercises as it's called. LOFT stands for Line-Oriented Flight Training. And on a LOFT exercise, what you would do, let's say you are going to be operating in and out of Aspen, in Colorado a lot. And Aspen is quite a particular type of airfield, especially in the winter and sometimes also in the summer because of the weather conditions. And so it's a good idea for your pilots to practice flying into Aspen in the simulator and have certain emergencies happen as they're flying into Aspen because of the terrain and the nature of the thing. The other thing which is a good idea, and I always recommend the owners of whose private jets that I manage, I always say we're going to talk to the manufacturer every year and get a list of accidents that have happened, if there are any, and look at the accidents and analyze them, and then create some scenarios in the simulator which kind of simulate that type of emergency which led to the accident, so that the pilots can run through those and know that if that type of scenario happens, they know exactly what to do and can bring the aircraft down safely. So that's something that quite a few airlines do. I recommend, even as a private jet operator, that you do that. So talk to your chief pilot, see if he can organize a good training program for your pilot team to keep you safe. And don't start umming and ahhing because you're spending an extra $50,000 or $100,000 on pilot training. That training is well spent. That's an investment in your safety and the safety of your executives and your family if you're flying your family around on your private jet as well. So safety is really, really key, and your pilots need to be good pilots, but they also need to be kept good pilots, as I've said in a previous video, and they need to keep that training going, and the training needs to be good quality and, feeding them the right information so these pilots can keep you safe. So that's all from Fab Poli at BizJet TV. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe, like this video, comment below, and I'll see you on the next one.